The coffee tasted like burnt rubber mixed with regret. 3 creams couldn't save it, but I drank it anyway because it was 11 p.m. and I'd been staring at network diagrams for the past 6 hours. My desk was buried under printouts, sticky notes, and half-eaten protein bars. The kind of organized chaos that looks insane to outsiders but makes perfect sense when you're deep in the trenches. My name's Riley Wells. I'm 41, senior network architect at Vanguard Systems here in Denver, Colorado. Been with this company for 12 years. Started as a junior tech when the building still had carpet that smelled like the 90s. Worked my way up through every department, every system, every crisis that almost broke us. I know this infrastructure like the back of my hand. The legacy servers we should have retired 5 years ago but can't because they're running critical payroll systems. The backup generators that only kick in if you toggle switch 3 before switch 1. The weird routing loop on the 4th floor that makes video calls glitch every Tuesday at 2 p.m. for reasons nobody else has figured out. Some people call me paranoid. I call it being prepared. Before I keep going, how's your evening treating you? And where are you watching from tonight? Tonight was supposed to be straightforward. Finish the security audit documentation before the compliance review hits us next week. Run the quarterly backup verification test. Maybe squeeze in an hour of sleep on the break room couch before the morning shift arrived. But then he walked in. Chase Donovan. Vice President of IT Operations. 32 years old, MBA from some school that probably cost more than my car. Hired 8 months ago because the board wanted fresh perspective and digital transformation leadership. He wore expensive watches and talked about synergy like it was a real thing. Always had his phone in one hand and a protein smoothie in the other. The guy treated our server room like it was a coffee shop where he could just drop by and chat. Riley, he said, flashing that practiced smile. Got a second? I didn't look up from my screen, just kept typing. Make it quick. I'm tracking down a packet loss issue on the East Wing switches. He laughed. That corporate chuckle that sounds like it was taught in a seminar. Always grinding, huh? That's actually what I wanted to talk about. Something in his tone made me stop. I turned in my chair and really looked at him. He had that expression. The one managers get when they're about to tell you something they rehearsed in the mirror. We're restructuring the IT department, he said, leaning against my filing cabinet like we were old friends. Moving toward a more agile cloud-first approach. Embracing modern methodologies. I waited. Let the silence do the work. The thing is, Riley, your skill set is incredibly valuable. But it's also very traditional, very manual, very hands-on in a world that's automating everything. You firing me? He blinked, thrown off by the directness. I prefer to call it a strategic workforce realignment. So yes. We're bringing in someone with a more contemporary approach. Someone who understands DevOps culture, containerization, microservices architecture. The future of IT. I leaned back and crossed my arms. Who? My nephew, actually. Kyle. Just graduated from a coding boot camp. Top of his class. Kid's a prodigy with cloud platforms. A laugh escaped before I could stop it. Sharp and mean. You're replacing me with a boot camp grad? Someone who learned what an IP address was 6 months ago. He's got fresh ideas. Innovative thinking. No bad habits to unlearn. Chase, we're 3 days away from a federal compliance audit. You're firing me right now. He glanced at his phone. Security's been notified. You'll need to hand over your credentials and badge. No need to finish up any projects or transfer knowledge. We'll figure it out. I stood up. Foley. You're not even letting me document my work? Company policy during transitions. Clean break. It's better this way. Better for who? He held out his hand. Badge, please. I stared at him for a long moment, then reached for my lanyard. Yanked it over my head and dropped it on the desk instead of his palm. The badge hit the surface with a plastic clack that echoed louder than it should have. Good luck with your nephew, I said, keeping my voice level. He's gonna need it. Then I grabbed my jacket and walked straight toward the elevator. The security guard waiting by the elevator was Eddie. 47, ex-military, terrible at poker but great at remembering birthdays. He looked uncomfortable as hell. They got you babysitting tonight? I asked as the doors slid open. Didn't know it was you until dispatch called. He stepped in beside me and jabbed the button for the lobby. This is garbage, Riley. It's business. It's stupid business. We rode down in silence. The elevator hummed. My reflection stared back from the polished doors, distorted and tired. I need to grab something from my car, I said. Left my parking garage remote in the console. Eddie shifted his weight. They said direct escort to the exit. Eddie, it's a garage remote. You think I'm gonna sabotage something between here and the parking lot? He chewed his lip, then sighed. 2 minutes. That's it. We diverted through the side corridor toward the parking garage entrance. The fluorescent lights buzzed overhead, half of them flickering like they were trying to send Morse code. Facilities had been meaning to fix them for months. As we passed the server room, I slowed down. The door was propped open. Music leaked out. Pop music. Loud. Eddie noticed my expression. You don't want to. I was already pushing the door wider. Kyle was inside. Early 20s, backward snapback, wearing a Supreme hoodie and Yeezys that probably cost $300. His laptop was open on my workstation, surrounded by energy drink cans and a box of donuts. There was a skateboard leaning against the backup server rack. A skateboard. In the server room. He had headphones on and was nodding along to the music, fingers flying across the keyboard. Eddie muttered, "Oh, this ain't good." Kyle looked up and pulled off his headphones. "Oh hey. You must be Riley." I didn't move. Just stood there taking in the disaster. "Yeah, sorry about the circumstances and stuff," Kyle continued, spinning in the chair. "But hey, no hard feelings, right? Uncle Chase says you built some solid foundations. I'm just here to bring everything into the 21st century. I stepped closer. Looked at his screen. He was running system updates. Not scheduled updates. Not tested updates. Just raw, live patches directly to production servers. "What are you doing?" My voice came out quieter than I intended. "Oh, this? Yeah, so I noticed the servers were running pretty outdated software. Some of this stuff is like 2-3 years old. Major security vulnerabilities. So I'm just pushing updates across the whole infrastructure. Should be done in like 20 minutes. My stomach dropped. "You're updating production servers? Right now?" "Yeah, it's all automated. One-click deployment. Pretty sick, right? Did you test anything first? Run it in a staging environment." He laughed. "Staging is old school. Agile methodology says move fast and break things. If something glitches, we just roll it back." I looked at the screen again. Really looked. He'd disabled the automatic backups to speed things up. Turned off the failover protocols because they were creating redundant processes. He'd even bypassed the change approval system because it was slowing down innovation. Every safety net I'd spent 12 years building. Gone. Disabled by a kid who thought servers were just fancy computers you updated like a phone. "Kyle," I said slowly. "Do you know what's running on these servers?" "Sure. Business stuff. Emails, files, whatever. Payroll. Customer payment processing. Real-time financial transactions. Medical billing for 3 hospital networks we service." His smile faltered. "Okay, but it's all cloud-based, right?" "It's fine. It's not cloud-based. Half these systems are running on legacy architecture because they can't be migrated without 18 months of development work and federal approval. Uncle Chase said everything was modular and scalable. Your uncle doesn't know the difference between a router and a toaster." Kyle's face went red. "Hey, that's..." I pulled out my phone. Opened my texts. Found the CEO's number. Wrote one message. "Server room fails in 9 minutes. You'll want to be here." Sent it. Then I turned and walked out, letting the door slam behind me. Eddie caught up with me in the hallway. "What did you do?" "My job. One last time." He didn't ask anything else. Just walked me to the parking garage in silence. I sat in my truck with the engine off and windows down. The parking garage was quiet except for the distant hum of ventilation fans and the occasional drip of oil from the car 2 spots over. My cardboard box sat in the passenger seat. 12 years condensed into a banker's box. A framed photo of my team from 3 years ago, my world's okayest network admin mug, half a bag of trail mix, and a collection of vendor pens I'd accumulated from conferences. My phone buzzed. "Riley. Don't move. I'm 8 minutes out." That was it. No signature. Didn't need one. I knew who sent it. Leonard Grayson. Founder and CEO of Vanguard Systems. Built this company in his basement 23 years ago with nothing but a business loan and a chip on his shoulder. He was technically retired now, spending most of his time on his ranch outside Colorado Springs, but he still held controlling shares and showed up when things got serious. I'd met him exactly 3 times. Once during my initial interview. Once when I stopped a ransomware attack by physically unplugging half the building. And once at the company Christmas party where he told me I had good instincts and a bad poker face. If he was driving in at 11 p.m. on a Wednesday, something was about to get interesting. I checked my watch. Opened my laptop and tethered it to my phone's hotspot. Pulled up the remote monitoring tools I'd built years ago. The ones that lived outside the official network. The ones nobody knew about except me. Call it insurance. Call it paranoia. Call it whatever you want. The system dashboard loaded. All green. Normal operating temperatures. Standard traffic loads. Then I watched the numbers start to shift. Server cluster 3. CPU usage climbing. 70%. 80. 90. Memory allocation spiking across the board. Network latency increasing. 5 milliseconds. 15. 42. Come on, kid, I muttered. Figure it out. He didn't. The updates were cascading. Each server reboot was triggering dependency failures in connected systems. The load balancers weren't compensating because Kyle had turned off the automatic failover. Traffic was piling up like cars behind a jackknifed semi. Cluster 3 hit critical temperature. The cooling systems were working overtime but couldn't keep up with the unexpected load. Then the first server crashed. A clean drop. 1 second it was there, the next it was gone from the monitoring board. Then another. And another. It was like watching dominoes fall in slow motion. My phone rang. Unknown number. I answered. Riley Wells. A woman's voice. Dressed. Speaking. This is Amanda from the data center. We're showing massive system failures across multiple servers. Chase Donovan gave me your number and said you might know what's happening. I almost laughed. Chase gave you my number? He's in the server room and he's freaking out. Nothing's responding. We've got 6 hospital networks showing offline. Payroll processing is down. Customer transaction systems are dropping connections. Where's Kyle? Who? The kid in the Supreme hoodie. Oh. I think he's crying in the bathroom. I looked at my laptop. Cluster 4 was starting to fail now. Cluster 5 showing warning signs. Amanda, listen carefully. Do not reboot anything. Do not try to restore from backup. The backups are corrupted because someone disabled the verification protocols. What do we do? I was quiet for a moment. Watching the dashboard. Watching 12 years of work circle the drain because some executive hired his nephew to save money. Nothing, I said. You wait. Wait for what? For someone with actual authority to ask me to fix it. I hung up. 2 minutes later, headlights swept across the garage. A black Range Rover pulled up next to my truck, tires squealing slightly. The driver's door opened and Leonard Grayson stepped out. 70 years old, silver hair, wearing jeans and a flannel shirt like he'd just walked off his ranch. Which he probably had. He looked at me through my open window. How bad? Cascading system failures. 6 hospital networks offline. Financial processing down. Probably about 15 minutes until complete infrastructure collapse. Can you fix it? Yes. What do you want? I met his eyes. Full access. Full authority. Nobody questions my decisions. Nobody overrides my protocols. Chase is gone. Kyle is gone. And I want it in writing before I touch a keyboard. Leonard pulled out his phone. Type something. My phone buzzed. A contract. Simple. 1 page. Everything I asked for in writing. Signed digitally with his name. Good enough, he asked. I looked at it. Really looked. It was ironclad. Yeah, I said. Let's go save your company. The elevator ride up felt longer than it should have. Leonard didn't say anything, just stood with his arms crossed, jaw tight. I could see the tension in his shoulders. This was his legacy melting down in real time because he'd let someone talk him into modernization. The doors opened on the 3rd floor. The IT department was chaos. People were shouting into phones. Someone was crying at their desk. Chase was in the middle of it all, tie loosened, hair messed up, barking orders that contradicted each other. Restore from the off-site backup. No, wait, use the local backup. Has anyone called the vendor? Leonard's voice cut through it all. Chase. Everyone stopped. You could hear the air conditioning. Chase turned. His face went pale when he saw Leonard. Sir, I was just about to call you. We're experiencing some minor technical difficulties, but we've got it under control. No, you don't, Leonard said. You've got a catastrophic failure that's about to cost us every client we have. It's just a small hiccup. Kyle was implementing some updates and... Where is Kyle? Chase hesitated. He stepped out. He's in the bathroom throwing up, I said, walking past them toward the server room. Because he just realized he broke a $20 million infrastructure with updates he didn't test. Chase started to follow me. Riley, you can't just... Leonard grabbed his arm. You can't. Come with me. I didn't hear the rest. I was already pushing into the server room. It was worse than I thought. Air lights blinking across every rack. The temperature was up 5 degrees. Cooling fans screaming. The monitoring screens showed a sea of red. Amanda was there, mid-30s, looking like she'd aged 10 years in the last hour. Thank God. Can you fix this? Get me into the main terminal. I need full admin access. She practically ran to the workstation. I sat down, cracked my knuckles and pulled up the command line. The system was a mess. Kyle's updates had created dependency conflicts across 15 different subsystems. Services were trying to start but couldn't find the libraries they needed. Processes were crashing and restarting in infinite loops. The backup systems were corrupted because he'd disabled integrity checks. It was like someone had taken a Jenga tower and yanked out all the bottom blocks at once. How long? Amanda asked. Depends. If I rush it and make mistakes, never. If I do it right, maybe 4 hours. We don't have 4 hours. We've got hospital systems offline. People can't access patient records. Then you better get me some coffee and make sure nobody bothers me. I started typing. First, isolate the failures. I created manual snapshots of every system state before touching anything. Then I began forcing shutdowns on the servers that were stuck in crash loops. Clean stops. No data corruption. Cluster by cluster, I brought things to a controlled halt. Then I started rebuilding from the ground up. I bypassed Kyle's updates and rolled back to the last known stable configuration. Not the official backup because that was trash. I used the shadow copies I'd been secretly maintaining. The ones that lived on a separate partition nobody knew about. Paranoid? Maybe. But right now that paranoia was saving everyone's ass. Server by server, I brought systems back online. Not all at once. Carefully. Testing each one before moving to the next. The hospital networks came back first. Priority 1. Patient care above everything else. Then financial processing. Then payroll. Then everything else. Amanda watched over my shoulder. How did you know to keep shadow backups? Because I've seen what happens when people who don't know what they're doing get access to critical systems. You predicted this? I predicted something like this. Didn't know it'd be a bootcamp, Nephew, but I knew eventually someone would try to modernize, without understanding what they were modernizing. 2 hours in, Leonard appeared in the doorway. Status. 70% restored. Hospital networks are stable. Financial systems are back. Still working on the secondary services. How long until we're fully operational? Another hour. Maybe 90 minutes. He nodded. Chase is gone. Escorted out by security 20 minutes ago. And Kyle. Sent him home in an Uber. He's not a bad kid. Just in way over his head. I didn't respond. Just kept typing. Leonard watched me work for a minute. Why didn't you tell anyone about the shadow backups? Because if I'd told someone, they would have wanted to integrate them into the official system. And then they would have been compromised tonight just like everything else. You don't trust easily. I trust systems. Systems don't have egos or nephews. He almost smiled. Fair enough. By 3 a.m. we were back online. Every system stable. Every network running clean. I ran a full diagnostic sweep and found 0 errors. Amanda slumped in her chair. I need a vacation. You need sleep, I said. Go home. I'll monitor everything for the next few hours. She looked at Leonard. He nodded. She left. I stood up, stretched, felt my back pop in 3 places. Leonard was still there, leaning against the doorframe. You saved us, he said. I did my job. Your job was to prevent this. But you prevented it after you were fired. That's different. I shrugged. Couldn't let it burn. Too many people depend on these systems. What do you want, Riley? Real talk. Name it. I thought about it. Really thought. I want to build a team, I said. A real team. People who know what they're doing. Not bootcamp grads or consultants with fancy slides. People who've been in the trenches. Done. I want full authority over infrastructure decisions. No more digital transformation mandates from people who don't know the difference between a server and a switch. Done. And I want a backup. A real one. Someone I can train to take over when I'm not here. Someone who'll protect this place the way I do. Leonard extended his hand. You got it. Whatever you need. I shook it. His grip was firm. Honest. One more thing, I said. No more nephews. He laughed. Actually laughed. Deal. The sun was coming up when I finally left the building. The parking garage was starting to fill with early morning commuters. My truck was still sitting in the same spot, cardboard box in the passenger seat. I opened the door, looked at the box, then grabbed it and walked back inside. Eddie was at the front desk starting his morning shift. He saw me and grinned. Heard you pulled a miracle last night. Heard wrong. I just fixed what should have never been broken. Your badge still works? I checked. Swiped it at the reader. Green light. Beep. Guess I'm not fired anymore. Guess not. I took the elevator back up to 3. The IT department was quiet now. Just a few early birds checking emails. The crisis had passed and everyone was pretending last night never happened. I walked back into the server room. Everything hummed peacefully. Green lights across the board. Temperature normal. System stable. My workstation was exactly how I'd left it. I set the cardboard box down and started unpacking. The photo went back on the shelf. The mug went back on the desk. The trail mix went into the drawer. Then I sat down and pulled up my terminal. There was work to do. Always was. I opened a new document and started writing. Infrastructure Security Protocol, Revised Edition. Everything I'd learned last night. Every vulnerability Kyle had exposed. Every mistake Chase had made. I was going to document it all. Build better systems. Train better people. Make sure this never happened again. My phone buzzed. Text from Leonard. Board meeting at 9 a.m. You're presenting. I smiled. Cracked my knuckles. Started building my presentation. They wanted to hear how I saved the company. Fine. But they were also going to hear exactly how they almost destroyed it. And they were going to listen. The board meeting room was on the top floor. Floor-to-ceiling windows, leather chairs, a table that could seat 20. I'd never been up here before. This was where the real decisions got made, where the people in expensive suits decided the fate of everyone below. I walked in wearing the same jeans and hoodie from last night. Hadn't been home. Hadn't showered. Didn't care. There were 8 of them sitting around the table. Leonard at the head. The rest were board members I recognized from company emails but had never met. Lawyers, investors, the CFO, a couple of others whose titles I'd forgotten. They all turned to look at me. Leonard gestured to an empty chair. Everyone, this is Riley Wells. She's the reason we still have a company this morning. I sat down. Dropped my laptop on the table. Let's cut to it, I said. Last night we came about 15 minutes away from complete infrastructure collapse. Hospital networks went dark. Financial processing stopped. If I hadn't been in the parking garage when it happened, you'd all be dealing with lawsuits and federal investigations right now. The CFO, a woman named Helen, frowned. I was told it was a minor technical incident. You were told wrong. It was a catastrophic failure caused by incompetence at the executive level. One of the investors, a guy in a suit that probably cost more than my truck, leaned forward. That's a serious accusation. It's a serious fact. Chase Donovan fired me at 11 p.m. and replaced me with his nephew. A 23-year-old bootcamp grad with 6 months of training. Then he gave that kid full administrative access to production servers and let him push untested updates to critical infrastructure. I opened my laptop and brought up the timeline. Here's what happened. Kyle disabled automatic backups to speed things up. Turned off failover protocols because they created redundant processes. Bypassed change approval systems because they slowed down innovation. Then he pushed updates to 15 different server clusters simultaneously without testing a single one. I clicked through the screenshots. Error messages. System crashes. The cascading failures spreading like wildfire. By 11:30 p.m., 6 hospital networks were offline. Patients couldn't access medical records. Doctors couldn't pull up medication histories. That's people's lives we're talking about. Helen looked pale. How did we not have safeguards against this? We did. I built them. Kyle disabled them because Chase told him to move fast and break things. The investor spoke up again. So how did you fix it? I kept secret backups. Shadow copies that lived outside the official system. I didn't tell anyone about them because I knew eventually someone would try to optimize them and destroy their value. That's a serious breach of protocol, he said. That breach of protocol saved your investment. Silence. Leonard cleared his throat. Riley did what she had to do. The question now is, how do we prevent this from happening again? I pulled up my next slide. First, we implement mandatory training requirements. Nobody gets admin access without proving they understand what they're doing. I don't care if they have a PhD or if they're somebody's nephew. Nods around the table. Second, we rebuild the change approval process. Nothing goes to production without testing. Nothing gets pushed during off hours without emergency authorization from at least 2 senior engineers. More nods. Third, we create a proper disaster recovery team. People who can step in during a crisis and actually fix things instead of panic. Helen was taking notes. What do you need from us? Budget for hiring. I need to build a team of people who know what they're doing. Not cheap. Not fast. But competent. How much? I threw out a number. It was high. Higher than I probably needed. But I wanted room to work. Nobody blinked. Done, Leonard said. What else? Final say on infrastructure decisions. If someone wants to make a change that affects critical systems, it comes through me first. I don't care if it's a board member or a consultant or the president himself. The investor frowned. That's a lot of authority for one person. That one person just saved you from losing everything. Do you want someone who knows what they're doing making these calls, or do you want another Chase Donovan? He didn't have an answer for that. Leonard looked around the table. All in favor? Every hand went up. It's unanimous, he said. Riley, you're officially Director of Infrastructure and Security. Build your team. Set your policies. We'll back you. I nodded. Closed my laptop. Then we're done here. I stood up and walked toward the door. Riley, Leonard called after me. I turned. Thank you. I just nodded and left. I spent the next 3 days rebuilding everything. Not just the technical systems but the whole department culture. First, I fired the consultants. All of them. The ones who kept trying to sell us on cloud migration, without understanding our regulatory requirements. The ones who treated our infrastructure like a toy they could experiment with. Then I started hiring. Posted job listings that were brutally honest about what we needed. Minimum 5 years hands-on experience. Must understand legacy systems. Must be willing to work odd hours during emergencies. No rock stars, no ninjas, no gurus. Just competent professionals who know their stuff. The applications flooded in. I spent 12-hour days interviewing. Asked tough technical questions. Made them prove they understood not just how to do something but why it mattered. I hired 6 people over 2 weeks. Each one was someone I'd trust with the keys to the kingdom. There was Derek, 42, spent 15 years working data centers before moving to corporate IT. New cooling systems, power distribution, physical security. The unsexy stuff that keeps everything running. There was Priya, 37, database specialist who'd worked through 3 company bankruptcies and knew how to salvage data from dying systems. There was James, 51, network architect who designed infrastructure for banks and understood security from the ground up. Each of them was exactly what we needed. Experienced. Careful. Professional. We met in the server room on a Monday morning. I laid out the situation. Here's the deal, I said. This company almost died 2 weeks ago because someone thought speed was more important than safety. That's never happening again. They listened. We're rebuilding from scratch. New protocols. New safeguards. New culture. I need people who understand that boring is good. Boring means stable. Boring means nobody's calling you at 3 a.m. because everything's on fire. Derek smiled. Boring is beautiful. Exactly. So here's how we work. Nothing gets changed without documentation. Nothing gets pushed without testing. Nothing gets approved without at least 2 people signing off. And if anyone, and I mean anyone, tells you to cut corners or move faster, you come straight to me. Priya raised her hand. What if it's someone with authority? Like a VP? Especially if it's a VP. I've got final say on infrastructure decisions. That's in writing from the CEO. Nobody overrides that. James nodded. What about the old systems? The legacy stuff that's holding everything together. We document it. All of it. Every weird quirk, every workaround, every piece of duct tape holding things together. Then we plan proper replacements. Not rushed. Not because someone read a trend piece in a business magazine. Because it's actually time. We spent the next month doing exactly that. Mapped every system. Documented every process. Built redundancies for the redundancies. It was slow work. Tedious. The kind of thing that doesn't look impressive in a PowerPoint presentation. But it worked. System uptime hit 99.97%. Response times improved. Error rates dropped to almost nothing. The hospital networks we service sent thank you emails. Said their systems had never been more reliable. The finance team stopped complaining about processing delays. Even the compliance auditors were impressed. Said our documentation was the most thorough they'd seen. Leonard called me into his office one afternoon. He had that look. The one that meant something was coming. The board wants to talk about expansion, he said. What kind of expansion? New clients. 3 major hospital networks in California. 2 financial services firms in Texas. They've all heard about what we did. How we rebuilt everything. They want in. I leaned back in my chair. That's a lot of new infrastructure. Can you handle it? With the right team and the right budget? Yeah. What do you need? I ran through the numbers in my head. 4 more engineers. Upgraded monitoring systems. Another backup facility in case the primary goes down. And time. We don't rush this. How much time? 6 months to onboard the California networks properly. Another 4 for Texas. He nodded. You got it. Whatever you need. I stood up to leave. Riley, he said. I should have listened to you from the start. Should have seen what Chase was doing before it almost destroyed us. You did listen. Eventually. That's what matters. How did you know? That night in the parking garage. How did you know it was going to fail? I thought about it. Because I'd seen it before. Not the exact situation but the pattern. Someone new comes in, thinks they're smarter than the people who built the system, starts changing things without understanding why they were built that way in the first place. It always ends the same. With everything on fire? Usually. I just got lucky that I was close enough to put it out. He shook his head. It wasn't luck. It was preparation. Maybe he was right. Maybe paranoia and preparation were the same thing. 3 months later I was sitting in the same server room where everything had almost fallen apart. The coffee was still bad. I was still working too many hours. But the systems were solid. Derek knocked on the door frame. Got a minute? What's up? New hire orientation. Kid just graduated, wants to work in IT. Leonard asked if you talked to him. I looked up. How old? 23. Fresh degree. Enthusiastic. He know anything? Not really. But he wants to learn. Thought about Kyle. About Chase. About the disaster that had almost destroyed everything. Then I thought about how everyone starts somewhere. How I'd been 23 once, thinking I knew everything, learning the hard way that I didn't. Send him in. A minute later, a nervous kid appeared in the doorway. Clean-cut button-down shirt, carrying a folder of resumes like they meant something. Hi, I'm Connor. Mr. Grayson said I should talk to you about the junior tech position. I gestured to the chair across from my desk. He sat. You know what we do here? I asked. IT infrastructure. Network management. Server maintenance. Wrong. We keep critical systems running. We protect data that people's lives depend on. We make sure hospitals can access patient records and banks can process transactions and payroll systems don't glitch. That's what we do. He nodded, trying to look confident but mostly just looking intimidated. You ever break anything? I asked. What? Ever make a mistake? Push a change that crashed something? Delete the wrong file? He hesitated. Not really. I've been pretty careful. Then you haven't done enough. Everyone breaks something eventually. The question is whether you learn from it. I pulled out a binder. My notes. Everything I'd learned over 12 years. Every mistake, every fix, every lesson. Here's how this works. You start at the bottom. You shadow Derek for 3 months. You learn how physical infrastructure works. Cooling, power, cabling. The boring stuff. When do I get to work on servers? After you prove you understand why the boring stuff matters. After you've seen what happens when someone thinks they can skip the fundamentals. After you've earned the trust of the team. He looked disappointed. I know it's not exciting, I said. But if you stick with it, if you actually learn instead of just checking boxes, you'll be part